Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are thrilled to have you in our Leading in a Crisis virtual summit today. Actionable business and HR strategies for navigating crisis and change. Today, I am thrilled that we have Pamela Canoyer with us. Hello, Pamela.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here today. I really am. This is
Well,
this is
this
fun
is going to
stuff.
be, the topic is 3 ways to virtually manage passive aggressive behavior at work. And I couldn't think of another time in history where we don't need to have this conversation on a variety of levels.
Hmm.
So I want to say thank you guys for joining us. If you're coming into the line, I just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors for the program, and then we're going to get right into our topic today. So first, I want to say thank you to David Whitmarsh and his team of ultra talented multi-channel marketing experts. If you or your team could benefit from the expertise of a full service online and multi-channel marketing organization, I highly recommend you reach out to David at bestpracticeNHR.com. Few other quick introductions. One of our sponsors, our internal team of trainers and professional diversity and inclusivity experts, have put together a few programs unique and specific for what's happening in our world today. And in many organizations, they are looking for ways to improve their diversity, inclusivity, and address racism head on in order to eliminate it and evolve as an organization and of course as a society. So some of our programs include training, assessment, discussion circles. We also have train the trainer programs. If you guys are reevaluating your D&I programs and we could be of service, do reach out. I'd love to have the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what we have going on. A little bit about me. My name is Anissa Avon, and I am the CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. We are a full-service coaching, organizational development, and training organization. We have experts on the ground in every major metropolitan area in the U.S. and in key hubs globally. And today, I am thrilled to introduce to you one of our exceptionally gifted, qualified speakers, trainer, leadership coach, and corporate consultant, etc. I want you to buckle up because Pamela, it's Canoyer is a nationally and internationally recognized conflict management maven. Pamela is skillful at her training and coaching specifically for upper, middle, and senior level folks in different organizations. She helps them to what she calls reclaim their disenchanted teams and workplaces. Pamela's leadership forte is in mastering mindset, around boundary setting and around advanced communication and resolving conflict, while at the same time raising the life quality for individuals both at work and at home. She has 20 plus years of facilitation experience, 20 plus years of public speaking experience, 40 plus hours of mediation training. And today we're going to talk about those passive aggressive behaviors at work. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Pamela, what did I miss? What makes you the expert? And what are we going to learn today?
Well, I think I'm just going to share my screen. How does that sound? We can
Sounds
start
great.
right up.
Get us started.
Okay. So today, what we're talking about are 3 ways to virtually manage passive aggressive behavior at work. And Anissa, you just did a beautiful job of introducing me, of introducing our sponsors. I love your company and being around you. So thank you for what you're doing. I really appreciate the opportunity. So
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a pretty timely topic.
yes, I think so. In fact, I did a lot more research just because this is what's happening to all the teams that I'm working with and finding that the virtual part is really becoming a problem. So I thought, well, it's time to address this a little bit more specifically around virtual
Okay.
um, entities. So, first of all, today, what you're going to discover are the top 12 passive aggressive behaviors that employees exhibit in virtual environments. We're going to talk about three things you can do right now to manage passive aggressive behavior. We're going to talk about 7 ways to mess it up that often we do. We're also going to talk about 7 more ways to clean it up. And then we're going to talk about 3 ways to prevent passive aggressive behavior from happening in the future. And I have more. So I just didn't want to give it all to you.
Right. Well, yeah, this is going to be a power packed hour.
Well,
Uh,
and I'm also
I'm
encouraging
ready.
people to write in the chat. So
Perfect.
Anissa is going to be monitoring the chat. I've got my chat window open too, so I can see it. She's going to be monitoring the questions, and I invite you to break in at any time, Anissa, and say, "Okay, Pamela, what about this?" or whatever. So,
You betcha.
so it becomes a conversation. So my goal, just to explain who I am, is to instill upper and middle management leaders to reclaim, and that's what Anissa already explained. I love mastering mindset, boundary setting, advanced communication, resolving conflict, and raising life quality. That's what I do. I've been doing this for 15 plus years, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, so what is passive aggressive behavior? It's a deliberate pattern of indirectly expressing negative feelings instead of openly addressing them. So it's kind of like, I have this picture, I just love it. It's 2 people and they're sitting at their workplace and whatever their boss is talking to them, and it shows them each pointing the finger to the other person while they're nodding their head. It's just perfect. It's like, here I am. I'm
Me.
indirectly saying it's his fault. It's not mine. I didn't do this. I don't own it. It's not my problem. So there's always a disconnect, though, between what a passive aggressive person says. So while they're doing this, I get it. Yes, you're right. And then they're pointing the finger the other way. So that's what that behavior is and what it looks like. So there is a handout that
It's going
has
to
either
be
been
available on the Hay Summit portal already. Paige uploaded it about 10 minutes ago.
excellent. So I encourage you to go to that summit link and download this handout. And what it is, I'm going to go through those with you, but this is going to help you kind of figure out never really, sometimes or often. And I'll cover the top 12. So I just encourage you to do that. If you have an opportunity right now, go there. And here are the top 12. So, first of all, temporary compliance. They say yes while meaning no, with frequent, almost plausible excuses for not following through on what they said yes to. So it's like, well, I didn't get the memo. We've heard that multiple times. Or, oh, I didn't know you were talking to me. Or I didn't know that was my responsibility. Or they say, yes, 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 I'll do it, no problem. Oh, and I'll take that one on too, and I'll do this and I'll do that. They say all those things and then it never happens. So the other one, intentional inefficiency. That means they evade situations and work commitments so others are inconvenienced. Oh, I can't find my chat button. It's nowhere to be found, but it happens over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Demonstrate at or below standards, meeting deadlines with subtle errors in their work. So it's like they get it done, they may get the work done, but it's just not done right. So if I were doing this workshop, for example, which I am, for an Anissa, and one of the requirements was is that we put turnkey coaching in the bottom of all the slides. Well, I just do the whole deck and I run the whole thing, and oh, I forgot to put turnkey at the bottom. So that's a passive aggressive behavior, especially if I do it on all my slides. And she sent me 1,500 reminders to do it this way. So it's like, make sure that we stay branded. And she's absolutely right.
Pat,
So,
what's interesting about this is I think most of us who think we understand what passive aggressive behavior
uh-huh,
is,
uh-huh,
um, every single thing that, and you haven't even gone through the whole 12, but every single thing that you're mentioning
Uh-huh.
has the microaggression or
Uh-huh.
the subtle passive aggressive, and yet I've never quite put my fingers on it the way that you're outlining it here.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, isn't it? And then they're non-responsive, or they say, no, well, no one told me. I didn't know about that. So that's the intentional inefficiency. And these are really important for you because when later on, I'm going to tell you to use these. Here's some more hidden but conscious revenge. So their email or their computer programs, all of a sudden they just stop working. So I thought this was really funny because 15 minutes before this, my mouse said no battery. And I live with my mouse. I was like, oh no, I'm doing it. So I put it on a supercharge. So I think it'll
There
make
you
it
go.
through the program. Or they don't turn on their camera while they're on video, or they go off camera during really important conversations. It's like that is one of the ways that they show passive aggressive behavior. They appear busy or they're distracted during meetings. They're doing something, of course, very important for the team, but they always ask you, can you just, what did you just say? You just said what? Because they weren't paying attention. So another one is they demonstrate nonverbal hostility or disinterest in the speaker or the group discussion. So they may be rolling their eyes, they may be, muted and doing whatever, but you're seeing them in the background. And, we know we're all working from home. So your dogs, your kids, people come into the room. And at the same time, there are moments when, if this happens all the time, they just haven't gotten a grip on it. So, or they make no comment during times where their input is really critical. So the next three, four are self-deprecation. So this is really important too, as a passive aggressive person is all about themselves. So they use cynicism, sarcasm. They're sullen, they can be negative, a lot of hostility or pessimism is showing up in their work or in the way that they act towards others. Or they're going to complain about being underappreciated or having more work than the rest of the team. I see this a lot. Oh man, this has just been a tough day. I mean, everybody needs my help. And I just can't get to them. That's where that comes from. Okay. And there are people who spread malicious rumors, gossip, and or blame others for why they didn't get their work done or in on time. Well, if so-and-so would coming into my office all the time or just blowing up my email inbox, then maybe I could get this stuff done. That has to do with passive aggressive behavior. They're blaming all the fact that they're not getting work done on somebody else. So they also withhold important information. Oh, you didn't tell me you needed that. So I'd love for you to write in the chat if you are seeing any of this at work. That would be interesting to see. I'm going to continue, but as
Please do. Yeah.
complete,
And because I know you have so much to cover here, but what I'd like
yes.
to know also from the folks on our call is how often do you see this and perhaps don't recognize it as a passive aggressive? I personally can say there are times when I feel frustrated by a team member's persistent, oh, my internet was out.
Yeah,
Oh, over and over when it doesn't happen to anyone else, for example.
exactly.
But I knew it was this failure or a
Mhm.
lack of engagement. I had never considered as a passive aggressive behavior. So this is a whole new world in considering it this way.
So here's something else to think about is everyone on earth displays passive aggressive behaviors. There isn't anybody who doesn't. There aren't any times, there are times when we're more emotionally intelligent, more mature, and we catch ourselves. However, for us to say, I've never done that and I'm perfect, well, that's just not going to happen. I've read multiple of these and thought, oh my gosh, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. So don't beat yourself up too badly. This is just when you're doing it consistently.
Yes.
Okay, the pain passive aggressive behavior insidiously impacts our workflow. All of a sudden, workflow gets clogged. Team and company morale starts going down the tubes because when passive aggressive behavior continues and it's not stopped, then this is what starts to happen. You're going to notice that management has attitudes about certain individuals or teams. You'll see organizational productivity as just stops or at least slows down. You're going to notice that your team and your company behaviors actually start to change. You're going to see more use of sick time and unexcused absences. You'll notice more workplace drama, and your A players and your good people are going to start leaving. Because if this is not managed or stopped at any point, and by the way, I encourage you again to type this in the chat, anything that you've got going on or any questions or concerns, and I'm happy to look at those. Okay, so passive aggressive behavior, it doesn't work out. So I'm telling you that are manifesting this behavior, here's what's going on. And I'm telling leaders, notice this is not going to work out for you. Teams eventually separate themselves for those who demonstrate passive aggressive behavior. So if you are a passive aggressive, or you're noticing that, oh, I hate working with this, whatever, or I feel this way about this person because they treated me wrong, whatever, if that's going on in your mind, eventually your team is going to separate from you. And even though that behavior is directed towards and affects others, it's ultimately a form of self-sabotage. You are the one in the end that is going to get it. So even though it hurts teams, eventually it hurts you the most. So three things. What can you do right now to manage and even stop passive aggressive behavior? So I want to go into those three. I'm going to first address the team leaders. So if you're a team leader, your team is expecting you to stop the behavior. They're not expecting the passive aggressive person to stop. They already know they're not. They're doing this all the time. They're looking at you. By the way, they're now blaming you and staring at you and saying, why are you not dealing with this? And you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this person is such a key player. I need them. I have to have them on the team. Or you're not really sure what to do with them. So if you force a rescue for your team, that means you decide to step in and I'm going to save the day and I'm going to stop this person. Your team is not going to learn how to manage that behavior for themselves. So part of this, the best way to stop passive aggressive behavior, team leaders, is to model and coach your people to ask for what they want in non-aggressive and respectful ways. So I am going to tell you how to do it yourself. And I'm also going to say how to coach your people, because I think that is way more powerful if everybody's on the same page. Usually, passive aggressive behavior is directed toward one individual. Sometimes it's directed toward the entire team because they've taken on that this whole team is against them. So team leaders, first of all, identify and document. This is your ICU. Identify and document. You want to recognize and identify that unwanted behavior, which is often subtle insubordination towards an individual or a team, like I just said. So you document the behavior, the effect on you or others, the frequency of the behavior, and company policies on the behavior abuses, which actually makes me come back and say, what is your company policy? Do you have policy on this? And those behaviors are the ones that I mentioned, the top 12. And of course, you can look them up online. There are like 5,000 different passive aggressive behaviors, but there usually are some top ones that continue to really pause workflow. I'm going to take a breath here and say, Anissa, do you have any comments or
Yeah, I do have a question. You may get to this later. And so don't let me pull us off track because I know you've got a lot to cover here.
Promise.
It seems to me that there are times when there is an appropriate escalation to say your computer not being on when you're supposed to work remotely is against our company policy. That's an issue, right? And then there are times when addressing it before you get to the escalation would work better for the relationship. What is the formula here that you're sharing with us?
Okay, that actually does come up later.
Okay.
So we're not addressing anything right now. We're just identifying.
Okay, perfect.
And I love that you brought that up. I'm going to, as I get closer, I'm going to say, Anissa, will you bring that back? No, we'll just remind you. So
Perfect.
yes, I am talking about this. The first thing though, that you have to know is what's going on. You have to be aware. So our awareness means we're identifying it and we're documenting it. And that is really, really going to help you in the long run because passive aggressive behavior is not easy to identify. You just feel it. That's all I can say. Everybody's like, "Oh gosh, there they go again." And they feel this anger, but it's like, well, there's nothing really wrong.
Yep.
It's way wrong. If you know what I'm saying.
The
Okay.
words subtle insubordination
Yeah.
means everything. And by insubordination, I even think, in reference to peers working together,
Mhm.
not just supervisors and subordinates. So thank you for having that. That's changes the dynamic in my mind, allowing me to be more consciously aware of
Yeah.
what.
Ah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're doing a great job because you're a team lead. So you're getting it. So it's working. Okay, the other thing is you want to call it out on your team. So here are some beautiful words that I suggest that you write down and that you hold dear to your heart. Your words are inconsistent with your actions. From now on, I'm going to trust your actions before your words until the two match up. That those to me, everybody that whenever I teach this class, they're like writing it down madly because
Serious.
this is huge.
Yeah.
You're just calling it out because you say yes and yet you don't do it. So that's an inconsistency. And it's just really simple if you can just get those words down. So I know that the slide deck, I think, or are going to be up there for
Yes.
you.
Mhm.
So if you need this, okay. All
Thank you.
right. So the next one is you give them an ultimatum. So first of all, we've identified it. Second, we've called it out. Now the leader, you give them the ultimatum. So this is if it's within your HR's directives, which is really important. Do you have something set up for passive aggressive behavior? So it's something just like Anissa said, your monitors need to be on during all times unless you identify what the challenge is in that moment, emergencies only or whatever, because you're at work. So that's what you're expecting people to do. You can encourage people to seek outside help. That's one of the ultimatums you can do. From this point forward, you need some outside help because it's not stopping. uh, but this behavior will stop, or you will be moved to another unit, to another team, demoted, or replaced. So we're finding a nice way of saying you could lose your job over this. And I'm not, the thing is that you don't want to get into a virtual rope tugging match
Sure.
where you're saying one thing, they're saying another. So you have to say something that you can follow through with. And if you can't, do not say it. So I suggest you write down and you rehearse what you're going to say before you do it.
Not the old, if you do this again, I'm going to tell you not to do it again.
Exactly. Because that just doesn't work. All that does is they just push your buttons. They've
Yeah.
already figured you out. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the team members. So here's how you can coach your team. So remember what I said earlier is that properly applied peer pressure, how to say that three times, can be more effective than that of an individual leader. So if you have your whole team all coming at the same direction, now there's teamwork. People feel that pressure rather than just the boss isn't looking. So the best way to stop that behavior is to ask for what you want in non-aggressive and respectful ways. So we said earlier that team lead, you want to coach your people to do it, and you're coaching your people to ask for what they want. So a lot of people are not um, very comfortable in asking for what they want.
That's right.
This is really an uncomfortable place. And I do have more presentations on helping you do that, but this one is just giving you the one, two, threes. So, team member one, you want to identify and document what is happening. So, help your team member recognize, identify, and articulate that unwanted behavior toward them. So, they may be seeing you, but they're really trying to figure out what's going on, why they're feeling this stickiness toward another person. And then they're going to document the behavior, how it's affecting them, and how often they're seeing it. So this is important because we're going to use it in step 2, which is calling it out for yourself. So if we can put the energy toward the problem and not the person. So instead of saying, you are doing this and I can't get my work done, we've just made the person the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is the work isn't getting done. It's not the person. So if you can focus on and approach the problem as a teammate, so this work isn't getting done, how do you think we should handle this? What do you think we could do? You're partnering with them instead of blaming them. So this is one of the approaches. I know some of you have already tried this. Doesn't work. That's why we have another slide. But I just wanted to say that. Just understand that if Hugh angers you, controls you, you're toast. You can't deal with somebody properly or non-aggressively if you're angry. So you got to do some internal work here, get some help. That's why we're getting help. And sometimes we are as much the problem as the passive aggressive person. Because if you really notice, this is really interesting, passive aggressive people are only effective when somebody allows them to be.
Yeah, what you're saying there is also relevant to what's been going on in my mind, which is it's really hard if a person doesn't have a tool,
Mm-hmm.
a habit of addressing the problem and not the person, but they
Yes.
don't want to disrupt the relationship, then what happens is they tolerate that passive,
Yes.
I'll just speak for myself. At times, I
Uh-huh.
will tolerate the behavior far longer than
Yes.
should be tolerated. And so by the time I do address it, it's a lot
Oh,
more than it should be.
a lot more fire behind it. Absolutely. I hear you 100%. I think we all suffer from this. It's not like, I'm calling somebody out. I'm calling all of us out.
Good deal. Yep. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay, so the second one, 2.2, is call it out for yourself. So you want to model. This is the model. It is actually worked. I have used it multiple times. I feel frustrated. I feel hurt. I feel, uh,
Let down. I
you,
feel confused. Mm-hmm.
yes. When and whatever, when I'm in this situation,
Yep.
and and then what I would like to see is, and then would you be willing to do that? So you're talking about you instead of them. We're not blaming, we're not finger pointing, we're actually saying, I'm not handling this real well. And would you be willing to work with me on this? So I am not saying that this is going to work 100%. I am saying that this is a way more mature way for you to handle it for yourself.
Yeah.
And so here's the example. I feel anxious and embarrassed when I'm in new client meetings without your support. And what I'd like to see is you take on scheduling and hosting the calls, and I'll be there for you. Would you be willing to do that? So now we're transferring that responsibility. Let's see what happens. Now we have to have that number 3, the ICU, the personal ultimatum. So if you're unable or unwilling to schedule and host the calls on time, starting with the next call, I'll find a new person to partner with on these calls. That's what I'm going to have to do. And in order to make this stick, you have to follow through. I'm going to say this again. In order to make this stick, you have to follow through. So you have to know what you can do, what your ultimatum is going to be, and that you can follow through with it before you ever speak it. Otherwise, no ultimatums. Nada. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's talk about 7 ways you can mess this up. So, first of all, show that they got to you. Ah, when you pull out your hair, when you give all those looks, when you get exasperated, when you roll your eyes, you're just showing that that passive aggressive person got to you, and now they're feeling like, got it. So, our goal is to not let that happen. And the next one is babysit or rescue. Let's just like it's okay. We'll take care of that later. Oh, I understand your screen, you've had trouble with your computer. I get it. And our goal here is to not let that happen, you know, is to not feel that way, is to not show that that happened. Instead, what we want to do is hold them accountable. Okay, when are you going to get this fixed by? Because this needs to be fixed. But I'm just saying how to mess it up. So I'm not giving you, sorry, I gave you an answer. Okay. Another one is not to gossip to your team. Oh, I hate it when they do that. So now we're letting off steam. We're letting the whole team know that they got to you. You're the leader, or you're saying that. So now it's going to get passed around, and everybody
Yes.
knows you don't know how to handle it.
Yes.
So
And
not
what
really
you're
good for you.
describing here too are passive aggressive ways in order to meet their passive aggression, which is it's a
Exactly.
roundabout. Now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is all actually drama triangle stuff, but I'm just talking specifically saying passive aggressive. So
Yes.
another one is to bring up the past. Well, you did this, 6 months ago and 3 years ago. And I remember when you did that and it really, really hurt. It's like all you're doing is dredging up and actually showing that you never got over it. So we're emotionally intelligent, we're more mature, we are strictly dealing with this behavior and what's going on. Okay. Another one, avoid defensiveness. Oh, well, I usually have that. When they call you out or say, well, you usually have your meetings at 2 and this one at 2:30 just messed me up. So, or, you usually have your meetings at 2:30 and this one at 2 just really messed me up. So I just didn't even show up until 2:30 because that's what I thought it was. Well, this time I had to take my daughter to the dentist and had to do, it's like that's us getting a defensive.
Yeah.
You receive 17 notices that this has changed. So I expect you to go back and listen to the information and go to the replay and catch up. Not being defensive. Again, I know I'm sounding, really snotty. You can say something like, because I get mad at them too.
You bet.
You say something like, it's in the replay. Just go back and check it out, and then you can catch up and get back with me if you had any questions further. You can say that very politely, very nicely, and it doesn't even sound like it got to you.
Yeah.
Okay, another one is we don't want to burn bridges because somebody who's being passive aggressive is also a gossip spreader. They spread rumors. They will also can ruin your reputation. So burning bridges with them, it's more like I know I've been working with somebody who's passive aggressive, and I will spend hours literally crafting the right response to them so that it's like I'm checking 15 ways for it to not come back to me in a negative way so that I can stay on top of it and I've not burned a bridge because that's very important to me.
Yes.
And as a professional, it is very important. And eventually I get better and better and better at it. Actually, I help clients do it all the time. But sometimes when it's like, okay, this is really critical, you're going to have to take that time. And another one is to give in to unfair demands. Well, you just need to leave me out of meetings from now on because I'm not any good to you anyway. Really. So just think about what those are.
Yeah.
Okay, and I encourage you to think about, write down your own. What were those things that came up for you? And now I want to talk about the 7 ways to clean it up. So we messed it up because we all have. And now let's talk about how to clean it up. So you
Okay.
want to remain open, non aggressive, and respectful. And I just gave you an example of how I said something angrily and then I came back and said it nicely.
Yes.
Any comments on that, Anissa?
Well, I think that what you're sharing with us are important bookends.
Mhm.
Several things that I'm taking away so far is the truth is that we are all going to mess it up at some point. We're all going to allow our emotions to get the better of us.
Mhm.
Um, at least those of us who are still human
Mhm.
are going to allow our emotions, right, to get the better of us. And what you're sharing with us now is if we make decisions about building our capacity to clean it up, then
Mhm.
we can turn that around on a dime. That's
Amen.
important.
Yeah, yeah. And By the way, these two, the mess it up and clean it up, are in your handouts.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's because I thought that was really would be helpful for you. So the other one is use direct, concrete, and timely communication. This is really easy for some of us and very difficult for others. So the direct communication, I suggest you write it down, especially if you're uncomfortable with direct communication. If you're taking a paragraph to say what you need to say, you're already indirect in your communication. Let's get it down to a bullet point, something short and sweet and to the point. Concrete, you're going to say it, but this is what I expect, and be very timely in your communication. Remember, in those very first slides, when we talked about how to say it, when this lines up, when your actions line up with your words, that's when I'm going to buy into it, or that's when I'll believe you, or that's when I'll work, anyway, whatever it was I said, it was so beautifully said.
It was good.
Yeah, thank you.
When your words line up with your actions,
Yes.
that's when I'll believe you or something. It
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. I can go
really well.
back and show that
Right,
slide
for
if
sure.
you want. Okay, so we also want to set clear expectations and limits. So we want to set timelines, actions, behaviors, statements. We talk about the missed works. Oh, thank you, Sheila. Your words are inconsistent with your
That's
actions.
it.
From now on, I'm going to trust your actions before your words until the two match up.
That was it. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Sheila.
She must have
Great.
been taking notes.
She has been. She's been a good girl. Okay, she did it. I said write it down. She did it. Okay, the other one is to use I statements, which we talked about earlier too. We gave a whole slide deck on I statements. And then another one is to clearly communicate that you expect results and then expect them.
Yeah.
And that means from this point on, can you agree that you're going to be on time for our calls? Actually, I want you to 10 minutes early. So when they agree, if they're not 10 minutes early, you have to already have your ultimatum in place. Otherwise, you've just given them another chance to be passive aggressive.
I
Okay,
suspect that
go ahead.
piece is sometimes a challenge for some managers. It's one thing to say, um, give the feedback.
Mhm.
When I feel frustrated when I'm speaking and you interrupt me and talk over me,
Mhm.
as the feedback. It's a whole other thing to say that and to say, and for the future, I expect you to wait until I'm finished to.
Uh-huh.
That's a whole different level of communication.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. that that's why they work with us, right? And
Right.
yeah.
Have my moments.
They're great moments. Okay, and we also want to engage our team to do the exact same thing. So if you're cleaning it up, you don't just clean it up for yourself, you clean it up for your whole team.
Hmm.
You're the leader, you're the one who helps them reframe and restate everything that they need to say to that person. So you help them rehearse. And then you want to keep all of your team accountable. You have no favorites. This is, if we say 10 o'clock, everybody's on at 10. There's no, unless we had a dire emergency and we were notified ahead of time. And if you have more than two, in a very short period of time, that's passive aggressive. It's not a dire emergency. You know what I'm saying? Unless somebody's sick. So we just have to know what that is, and you have to be aware if this person's always sick. So, something's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any questions about that?
Good stuff.
Okay, excellent. So, let's move on to the next one. Which cleanup are you going to try? And I would love for you to decide. So, I'm going to go back here. Which one do you think that you could probably do more of? And I'm going to tell you, for me, I need to use more I statements. I realize that that's the one that I'm going to work on probably. And let me see the other ones. I'm usually pretty good at number three. I'm not always as good at number two, being very, very direct. I can be concrete and timely, but not always direct.
I think,
So we're,
yep.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, for me, the ones that I'm personally really going to work on is oftentimes I end up being direct, but with too much of an edge. So
Yeah.
I am going to work on direct and non-aggressive, respectful,
Yeah.
timely.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Amy says number 1, 2, and 3 for her in
Oh,
the chat.
good. Yeah, those are good. Those are excellent ones. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Yeah, they're all good ones. Okay, so now we know which tips people are going to try. So if you need help, I'd really like to invite you to a complimentary 30-minute review of your team's most destructive behaviors.
Oh, that's great.
So what we'll do is we'll actually go through this checklist, those top 12 that we went through together, and you can expect to take away at least 3 strategies to implement right away. That's just my gift to you. And you'll also receive beneficial next steps that you can take to stay on track in managing those behaviors and your team's management. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this in the chat
Oh, that's
so that
great.
you can actually do this review. Click on that, go there now, sign up for this review. And I've got it open because I know this is an evergreen. So you can go in, and even if you're watching this later, you can still go to this link.
So even
And
in 30 minutes, I can see how this would be incredibly valuable, Pamela,
thank you.
to have a conversation around, even just number 2, intentionally evades work and commitments so others are inconvenienced.
Yeah.
If the answer is never, great, fantastic. But if
Yeah.
the answer is somewhere other than never, that's a really big deal, not to mention the other 11. If
Yeah.
withholds important information,
Uh-huh.
that's not ever going to be acceptable on a team. So it would be incredibly valuable
Well,
to have
thank
a
you.
dialogue
I
around how
appreciate
to
that.
resolve it. Mm-hmm.
And you can tell by your score, because if you see at the bottom it says a score 48 to 35, you might consider the review session. If your score is 34 to 23, trouble could be brewing.
Yep.
Pay close attention to the workshop, see if you can follow the things that I'm saying. And if you're between 22 and 12, congratulations.
Beautiful.
You probably should be leading this. So anyway, next I've got, let me see, trying to click to the next slide. There we go. Preventing passive aggressive behaviors. Now, here's some of the more. First of all, you want to deal with problems in the moment. This is what you asked me about earlier.
Yes.
It was clear at the end. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to answer that yet.
Perfect.
If you can deal with things that come up in the moment, your screen is off. Oh, this is perfect. I was teaching a workshop, and this was to one of the companies that I work with. And one of the people on the call did not have his screen on. Everybody else had a screen on. So I just said, hey, so-and-so, I see your screen is off. Could you please turn it on? And then I just kept moving. And guess what? He turned on his screen. I had received notes from other people that says, oh, he never does it for me. I'm like, yeah, but did you ask him?
Ask.
Did you deal with the problem in the moment? So that's really huge. And you also want to seek out and address the root of the behavior, because often they're doing it now because of something that happened before. It's not because of what you are now. It's whatever happened before. So go figure this out. This is important for us as leaders. And then pay close attention to what's happening in your workplace. Be aware. Evaluate and reevaluate your work culture. It's an ongoing process. Watch for hostilities or resentments. And then I'm just saying rinse and repeat. Deal with it, seek out the root. Deal with it, seek out the root. Be aware, deal with it, seek out the root. And you should be in a really good place, because that will actually prevent it from happening. You won't let it start. Go ahead, Anissa.
Yeah. I do have a couple of questions in particular about our workplace environment and our economic environment and our racial unrest right now.
Mm-hmm.
How are leaders, how can they use this concept of identifying the passive aggressive behavior when there is also so much pain involved in what's going on right now? How do you distinguish between someone who is just in pain and having a momentary glitch and someone that is truly acting in a passive aggressive way?
I love that question. I really do. And I think it really ends up in number two, seek out and address the root of the behavior. If you see something, okay, I've noticed since, you've been working from home, this is what's happening, let's just have a virtual coffee and let's talk. And so you want to figure out what the root is. And it may be that, they are having problems at home. And so this home environment is really tough for them. So now they seem like they're passive aggressive, and what they're really doing is they're just trying to deal with, they're trying to manage it. They can't, maybe they're being yelled at by a spouse in the back of and so they are constantly putting their mic on mute because they can't get out of the way. They can't get out of the room, and their kids are all around them. And so they're on mute, and sometimes they're off the screen because their kids are running through. You never know what it is. And so if we can seek out and address the root of the behavior, we're going to know whether or not that's truly passive aggressive or that they're really just trying to be respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you for that. That was just.
Well, and thank you. And I think you just answered the question that I had asked previously, which is there are times when an escalation needs to occur, when something is persistent and repetitive.
Yes.
Then comparing it to our HR policies and what my options are for resolving this in another manner. There are times when that's the approach, and other times when it's seeking out, this is a question in the form of a statement, but is it accurate that other times it's about seeking out the root of the behavior and then also speaking directly and cleanly about the expectations and requests?
It absolutely is. Yeah,
Okay.
you nailed it. You passed my workshop.
Pretty excited about that, actually. That's good.
Good. And Wendy, thank you for loving the checklist. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Wendy wrote in the chat that checklist is awesome, and I agree.
Okay, so here are some rules of survival, and I think really as one of the best things I can leave you with is if you're really dealing with a passive aggressive and you've been working with it, you're living with one, you're around it all the time, you do not ever expect anything from a passive aggressive. You don't want anything from a passive aggressive, and don't depend on anyone who displays those behaviors for any responsibilities that are important to you, your team, your company, or your family. If they are continuing to be passive aggressive, stop relying on them. And now you're saying to yourself, yeah, but they're being paid. They have a paycheck. Yes, that's why we have to deal with this. We don't just stop. Okay, what I'm saying is you can't expect anything from them because they're not going to give it to you. They're going to let you down at the last minute. So holding on to that and then trying to make them perform when you haven't really dealt with the root issues, we're barking up the wrong tree. It's not going to happen. So for you to want to survive, you have to be able to be in this space, and that means you give somebody a role or a responsibility that you're not depending on. That means they may get demoted. They may be removed from certain really highly responsible places until they've worked out that behavior. And if you can't afford it, it's again, you get your own work because you have to learn how to call this out and how to deal with it and how to give ultimatums you can actually follow through with. So that's those are my final words. Here's my contact information. I know that Anissa is going to post that again. I really want to make sure and encourage you to schedule that review. It's in the chat, and it's really like the second one up, the passive aggressive review with me. I'd be honored. And if you need help, I'd just like to invite you to that review. So with that, what I'm saying is thank you to my sponsors. Anissa, you still get to close this out, or I can answer questions however you want.
I think that was really a fascinating and different approach to dealing with passive aggressive behaviors than any of the webinars or training I've ever seen. So thank you. for
Thank
you
you.
and what you've brought forth. I do have a couple of questions for you.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll stop sharing our screen.
Okay, happy
Yeah,
to.
stop sharing and just you and I chat for a moment. And folks, if you're
Okay.
on the call and you have a question, do put that in your chat box. Um, when you are, let's give you a scenario. So
Mhm.
we've had an experience where we have a leader who is working with this team.
Mhm.
And what he wants is for his team to be highly functional and drive for results and have the same level of passion that he has. He has a tendency to take things personally. So
Uh-huh.
if the team were to tell him, hey, I'm not sure that's the right solution, he shuts them down. Or if they were to say, we as a team have a communication problem, he's going to get upset
Uh-huh.
about it. So it's
Yeah.
a reverse passive aggressive behavior on top of a leadership style that shuts his team down. What does the team do, or how would you how would you bring your solution around passive aggressive behavior to that kind of dysfunction?
You know, I'm pulling up this slide deck because it's so cool, but it doesn't seem to be coming up, so forget it. What I
Uncooperative.
tell people is that we're either wearing Teflon or Velcro. And our Teflon, when we're wearing Teflon, things just hit us and they fall off because we're at our highest emotional maturity. We're using our emotional intelligence tools, which I know that there are plenty of things resources you can go to. If you're wearing Velcro, that means everything anybody ever says is sticking to you because you're holding on to something that happened to you a long time ago. And now these things are hurting you and they're getting our ego. We're getting all involved. We're feeling hurt. And then we become dysfunctional. So, working with that person, I would actually, probably more or less teach about Velcro and Teflon
That's great.
and what suit do you think you're wearing right now? And how do you think that you can move this to Teflon? And let's talk about where this really started. What is really going on for you? So I would get to the root of that leader's problem because they can't solve anybody else's problem until they've dealt with their own.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really, really valid. And let's suppose that the HR can only really get through to some of the team members. How might the team members use direct, non-aggressive, respectful feedback up the line?
Ooh, the same
Oh, I
way.
like that. Yvette says they have to do conflict coaching with one of us. I'm in agreement.
Go, girl. So, all right. So if they're having to deal up, it's the
Yeah.
same thing using the I statements.
Yes.
It's you really can't give them an ultimatum per se. However, you can say, I would really appreciate this. And if that person continues to be passive aggressive towards you, really, first of all, I'd make sure that I don't have triggers. I would clean up my own Velcro
Yes.
because they are doing something that's triggering me and getting me to act out, and I don't really want to be acting out. So what do I need to do? So if I can take care of me, I'm going to manage that person much better.
That's
If
great.
I choose to not take care of me, then go find something else and stop dealing with this person. If you're not willing to work on yourself and or comfortable or they're not willing to quit, then it's time for you to be a creator out of the drama triangle and make choices for yourself. Be radically different and do what you need to do for you.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well said. We can't control how other people respond. And yet, I think that as we continue to grow, we learn how to be influential in ways that inspire a heightened or more appropriate response from others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're working on is how do I manage me? Ultimately, this is all about how do I manage me?
Right.
And when you know how to manage you, what's really interesting, and I want you to think about this, if you are working with somebody and you see a passive aggressive, but they're not passive aggressive to somebody else,
Yes.
then this is between you and them. This is
Such
something you're giving off.
a good point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, you got to work on you.
And addressing that individually as opposed to a team
Yes.
is required there if it's an individual issue. I
Yes.
do see a lot of managers who will address something that needs to be addressed with an individual as a unit, as
Uh-huh.
if it's the whole team,
Yeah, I know.
and that can really mess up a team dynamic.
Well,
Because
it's indirect.
yeah,
It's indirect. It's not
a little
direct.
passive aggressive on our own part. It
It's tough, and sometimes
is tough.
that's the best way. Why, I've had companies ask me to come in. Will you just train for us on this? And we're hoping this one person will get it. Well, that's the one person who never gets it. So,
True.
you
Why
know,
are we, yes,
it's
that is
let's work with
exactly right.
you so you can get that person to get it because you're the one who's uncomfortable in approaching that person. So,
That's right.
and it's
That's right.
okay if you are. There is nothing wrong. Nobody is born a perfect manager. This is, and in management and in being a leader, it's trial and error. And I think really great leaders have partners. So,
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Well said. So, definitely, folks, reach out to Pamela. Her website is powerfulandtrue.com. You can also reach her directly at 541-517-2285. And I also want to share with you guys how to get a hold of Turnkey. If we may be of service or assist you or even put you in touch with Pamela, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm Anissa Even at 281-469-4244 or summit at turnkeycoachingsolutions.com. Pamela, awesome. That was great.
thank you. That was
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you,
Appreciate
everyone, for joining us. Stay safe and healthy. Healthy.
it. Okay.
Take care.
Bye bye.